Right. Now, we are going to look at methodology selection for as the first part of today's session. Now, in the system development, we need some formal methodology, especially when, let's say, you are going to develop an information system. There are like specific phases you need to follow. So we need to know which phase you are in. We need to know the key task in that phase and so. Why we have to follow a formal methodology? Simply because for the guidance. It's not just only developing a system, and your system will evolve with the time, right? And use of a formal methodology will assure you this is a sustainable and a repeatable process. So it's very important that you follow some methodology for a selected development project. Now, the problem with the selection of methodology is there are like lots of methodologies are available. There could be hundreds of methodologies available, right? And there are some industry standards, there are proprietary options. So remember that depending on your organization, depending on your project, right, you have to choose the right methodology. So not all the methods are suitable for all the problem at hand. So depending on the problem, we need to select the right methodology. So there could be many methodologies, but we have to select the right one. Now, when you have methodology, right, so we need to evaluate. Now, evaluation can be used when you are going to selecting a particular methodology. So when you want to select a particular software development methodology, we can use evaluation to select, right, a best method. So during the evaluation process, what we do, we determine whether this particular methodology meets any specific needs of your organization, right? So we start this by evaluating the methodology based on organizational requirements and objectives. So the final outcome of this is we need to find best fit for your organization. Right. So as a summary of selecting a methodology, we need to have a formal methodology. It's very important. And there are a wide range of methodologies we have depend on your organization needs. And we need to evaluate the methodology to ensure it aligns with your organization goals and requirements. Right. Now let's look at some methodologies in general. So we'll start with the common generic methodologies. So when you look at the common generic methodologies, again, there are a wide variety of methodologies available and it evolves with the time. So depend on which mode you are going to develop your information system, organization has to select the appropriate methodology. So multiple methodologies can coexist within the company. So depend on your project, you can use like several other methodologies as well. Right. When you take the very standard way of information system development, what we use is called system development life cycle. I hope you have already discussed this in your previous course as well. So in system development life cycle, usually we talk about a phase, a structured approach, right? When you say phased, it means there are few different phases. For example, in system development life cycle, we start the phases with requirements, feasibility. So for example, we will look at whether the information system development is technically feasible. Then we look at whether it is financial feasible. Then we look at whether it's operationally feasible. Then we identify the requirements, right? Requirement analysis. And then we design the system. Then we develop the system. Then we test the system. Then we implement it. And that means deployment. And finally, you have to maintain it. So there are a lot of variations and potential for this overlapping is these phases. So if you ask me like whether this is still used in industry, yes, again commonly in use, but usually with the combination with other methodologies available. Right. The next one is the agile methodologies. Nowadays, usually this system development, usually you have many changes, or it's iterative, incremental, which means you are not going to develop the software system at once. So first you build a small prototype. Maybe you implement a set of features first, and you get the users' feedback. Usually users are interactively, work together in agile methodologies. Then you iteratively develop, so that after several iterations, you come to a place where you can implement the system development. So these agile methodologies may emphasize on the flexibility, right? It's not fixed. You can collaborate, and always you can get the direct outcome from the customer. So the customer feedback is one of the key points. Then there are a lot of different types of agile methodologies are available. Most commonly used one is known as Scrum, but there are others like Kanban or extreme programming. So when the agile methodologies comes in, it was rapidly becoming the preferred approach. So most of the project nowadays, you can see right. So you can see it's most commonly nowadays you see agile methodologies in practice. But mostly we have used Scrum. I think we briefly described the Scrum methodology earlier as well, which has what we'll call the sprint, 2 to 4 weeks time frame, where you can actually develop the system. Right. Now, when you look at the recent developments, the DevOps is another development strategy. So the idea of DevOps is usually there will be the gap of the development team and those who are operations. So by introducing the DevOps, they were trying to reduce the gap between the development and operation teams. So the main key points in DevOps usually is the communication and collaboration. Usually have good communication among the developers and the teams, as well as the users. You collaborate, and mostly you will also focus on automation. So this DevOps development strategy facilitates the continuous integration, continuous delivery, and continuous development. So what happens at the end in this type of development strategy? It enhances the overall efficiency and reliability of the software delivery. Right. And another development strategy nowadays, if you look at, we have microservices architecture. So the idea of Microsoft architecture is we usually decompose application into small modular independently deployable services, which that's why we call microservices. So this architecture promotes a couple of ideas: agility, scalability, and fault tolerance, especially when system scale in a fast pace. So this could be one place where you can look at it. So another advantage is in microservices architecture, it encourages the use of different technologies and language for different services. At the same time, you can also see that this methodology you can combine with Agile and DevOps. Right. Another development strategy we call test-driven development, or in short, we say TDD, and behavior-driven development, or BDD. So test-driven development means always you start writing some test cases. So these test cases are usually developed before actually writing the actual code. And then you refactor the code to pass tests. Similarly, when you look at TDD, it focuses on defining the behavior of software from perspective of stakeholders. And these will enhance the code quality, maintainability, and communication among team members. Then we can have cloud native development. So in this particular case, you are going to develop application specifically for cloud environment. And it uses cloud native technologies, things like containers, serverless architectures, and images, and also microservices. So this will improve the scalability, flexibility, and resource efficiency. Okay, so up to this point, usually we talk about the latest one. Now let's look at some commonly used ones. Iterative development or prototyping is another example compared to SDLC, standard system development life cycle, right? And the idea is you will use a compressed development cycle. We can use it to shorten the time to market. And then we can also provide interim SaaS to the end user. So in iterative, especially when you're developing a product as a prototype, so can get users' feedback. So there are steps like listening to the customer, and also you continuously build and revise, right? And then you can have a test drive and you can have a return. Next one is rapid application development. Again, it's a form of iterative model. And the idea is you are going to first pass off the system within 60 to 90 days. And then you have things like business modeling, data modeling, process modeling, application generation, testing, and turnover. Right. And this could use application generators. Formerly, we call it as case tools. Then incremental model. So in incremental model, we break the business problem into increments. And we will have overlapping phase approach to software development. So the main phases are analysis, design, coding, and testing. Right. Then joint application development, or JAT. So this is normally called a technique, not a methodology like per se earlier. So it integrates users into software development team. Again, you emphasize on collaboration and also the communication. Right. Another one, we normally call reverse engineering or re-engineering. So reverse engineering, we want to talk about the code, especially in the existing system, right? And then you can have the desired changes. So this is called re-engineering. Again, fitting existing system to new business functionality using a combination of clouds. Finally, we are going to talk about the object-oriented methodologies. So we have object-oriented analysis and object-oriented design, and also object-oriented programming. So there will be a different. So we have traditional, more structured methodologies. Just to summarize this session, we can say many methodologies are available for the organization to choose from. And which one is to select is what you need to decide. And then there could be various methodologies can coexist and you can complement each other. Right. Okay. So that's all what I have for today's session. This is actually continuation of previous session. Right. So let's finish for today's session, and then I'll have another session on tomorrow, if possible, the continuation of this. Please let me know in the chat whether it's possible. So I'll take a 1 hour session with the others' participation. So I'm assuming that